Hi everyone, today I want to talk to you about 10 one-liners that save time and are useful. So we all know various command line tools, but those command line tools most of the time either have a lot of flags or parameters that we don't remember, or they are bundled together with other command line tools, and thus a one-liner is a nifty command that you can type in a terminal and do something useful. They are hard to remember, but once you start using them, you keep on using them all the time. Some of them can be aliases, some of them can be functions, but it's actually quite easy to use a command line snippet manager and have your own one-liners that you can quickly find and execute. So why even bother? First of all, the commands that we typically type for network lookups or file searches have a lot of useful flags that if we don't use often, we just don't remember. We might not need them every day, and we end up searching either in man pages or Stack Overflow or generally somewhere how to do something that we did 2 days ago and we need it again. So that's where those one-liners come into play, and once you have a collection of those, you want to store them somewhere and be able to quickly execute them and find. And that's where command line snippet managers come into play. So the first category is using AI. Everybody uses AI to some extent. And as you can see, the snippet that I am using here actually utilizes 2 different commands. So if you look at all of them, they all use some command that provides input. They use pipe. And then in my case, I'm using Fabric, which is a command line tool that essentially democratizes prompts. You can grab it from this repository. It's a really good tool if you're using AI inside of terminal. So let's see how this works in action. So I have this one-liners set up in my pet snippet command manager. I forked it and added some additional features, but you can use it as is as well. So Control S for me shows these various commands, and I gathered them just for the video in this tag under 10 one-liners. So if I hit this summarize web page with AI, which is currently highlighted, you can see that it pre-fills the command, and I have a curl, then name and pipe and fabric. So I have my own automation which uses bash associative arrays and Z shell editor. Wherever I do question mark and an abbreviation and hit space, it changes into something. So in this case, the placeholder name needs to be changed for something. So since this is a web page, we can try to summarize my web page, which is cloudrumble.net. And when I hit enter, you can see the command was substituted. And now we are curling my web page and piping it into the Fabric command. So we let it run, and we're gonna go to the next example. So using AI is very simple. You obviously don't want to remember all the flags and parameters specifically for the Fabric command here, and also with an added nicety of substituting this name value. It is really useful in and of itself. Next category is sharing files. I often have to share files with someone by saying like, hey, look, those are the files in my directory. I want to share them so somebody can look at them. There are, of course, 100 ways of doing it. But for me, the easiest is to quickly spin up a Python server inside of a folder and then use a command line tool called ngrok. ngrok, if you don't know, exposes your local port on a randomly generated URL that someone else can access. So you're funneling this listing of your files to someone. And I'll show you how this works in a second. Again, a quick one-liner. If you want to do this, like you want to share with someone, oh, this is my files in the folder, you can just quickly grab them, right? So when we are back in our demo window, that's the result of the command. So Fabric summarize using O3 Mini model summarized my web page. Cloud Rumble is an IT certification cloud computing hub offering Kubernetes, blah, blah, blah. So this is my personal web page, which got summarized with this. So let's clear the screen and do the other one-liner, which will be the Python server. So again, I do Control S and then I search for Python. And I have it a little bit more elaborate. So I am killing anything that is listening on port 8080. And then I am activating the Python server and passing it to ngrok. So when I do this, the result of it is a web page that has this URL. And if this would be live, you would be able to navigate to this web page and see all my files. However, I can curl this curl http 8080, and you can see I have command.md, examples folder, and presentation.md. And this is exactly the content of this folder. So very, very useful command to share with someone the content of your files, just temporarily giving them access to your folder. There are other commands in this category that are very, very nice. One is if you're using Docker to build images, you can use this command to create a temporary image and pass it into a special service, ttl.sh, that holds your images publicly for a specific period of time. It's very nice for demos or for just quickly sharing an image with someone that you just want someone maybe to have access to, and then it disappears. And a third command in this category is you can take any file. So curl with tag F option would take any file from your current folder. And we are using here tempfiles.org service that uploads this file. So when you run this command, you're going to get a link to your file, uploaded file that you can share with someone, and whoever has this link has access to your file. So a third category that I use a lot are creating tasks from various contexts. Task is a command line tool called Task Warrior. I have several videos on my channel showing how to use it to manage your tasks. It is a really powerful command line tool and kind of like a to-do manager, but you can do much more. So I find myself very often doing this. So I add a task to a project that is taken from my current Git branch. So I'm essentially working on something and I have my branch named in a specific way, and I am using this as a project, or I can add this task for a specific time and so on. So we're not going to deep dive to a Task Warrior, how it works, but let's use this first example of adding a task that its project is essentially a current directory. So we can do the same as always, task add, and we'll say current directory. And you can see again that here I have this replacement. So I just need to name my task somehow. So let's say test task. And then we are adding this project. And when we hit enter, the task number 61 was added. And this task has the name, has the project 10 one-liners, which is the folder where we are currently in. Very, very often I use this one-liner to create simple tasks, and they're just being recorded in my task warrior. Another category is killing processes. So very often I have to deal with things like what is listening on a specific port, what has a file handle on a specific file, and various derivatives of this. This is typical operation that you perform on Unix-based systems. I do this almost every day, especially the lsoff command. If something occupies a port and I want to understand what process do I have to kill. So let's try one of those. So we can say process. So we can say interactive process killer. So you can see we are listing processes, piping it to FZF, which is a Swiss army knife of command line tools, and then extracting appropriate value and then using xargs to pass it. This command is a very good example of this type of one-liner that is extremely useful, but to type it every time, if you don't do this every day, it's just cumbersome. So now if I hit enter, you can see all my commands here. I don't want to kill any commands, but if I would type whether a port or a name of a process and hit enter, it would actually kill this specific process. Another category is disk usage. Again, I often use various commands, but there are a lot of programs that you can use to display disk usage in a nice, colorful way. And I keep forgetting flags and which programs are there. So it's quite interesting to have a snippet where I can just do S and say disk, and then I can choose one command or the other that I can see. In this case, ndcu is kind of like a nice command telling me what is the size of every disk and every file here. So this is one category. Another one is scheduling and queuing commands. If you are not using this program, I highly recommend getting familiar with the program called Pew. And this is essentially a parallel queuing system. You can think about it as executing any command in the background, and in a multi-threaded parallel way, this command will run. You can take a peek into the command, see what it's doing, and so on. So here a make test is a good example. If this is a process that takes a long time on one of your projects, you can use this command. However, they are pretty easy commands as well. You can use the command called at, which enables you to schedule any command to be run in 2 hours. So we can try this now. So we can say any command that I can schedule here. So let's say this would be, actually I have to see what are there. So it says any command, and then now plus, let's say how many hours. So let's say 1 hour. And then the command will have to be, we have to change it manually. Let's say echo ls. And I made a, I'm not sure if this is the correct syntax. Yes. So now we are going to, in 1 hour time from now on, I will have a random command executing the ls in my current terminal, which is obviously not that useful, but you can do this in this way as well. Finally, we have encrypt and share. I highly recommend a command line tool called H. And this command line tool is kind of simpler and better GPG without all the GPG quirks and baggage. So I can encrypt a simple file with password. I can decrypt it, but I can also in one go share with the temp files that we've seen earlier. So this is something I also often do. I create a tarball from something and encrypt it. But let's just encrypt a simple file with this command. So I can do H and would be encrypt with password. So we have here this name, but this name will be a file. So I have another abbreviation here called file. If I hit space, it will show me all files in the current directory. When I hit enter, you can see it substituted the file name here. And here I can hit a passphrase. So let's do something super secure here. The passphrase didn't match, I mistyped it, but if I would type it correctly, the file would be encrypted here. So very useful command for very quickly encrypting a file and decrypting it later. Super useful as well. Working with Git, I think at this point everybody works with Git, and I had trouble selecting something interesting for this category. But one of the Git commands that is generally extremely useful, and I've learned it just a few months ago, is git reset -- soft. What it does, it essentially resets your commit, in this case head -1 commit, and it do not erase your git state. It just drops your files again to being staged, which is very, very interesting. And if you want to reorganize your commits into something nicer, or group different files into different commits, this is a really nice way of doing it. I often use it when I work on a larger change and then commits are clumped incorrectly together. Then I can just do soft reset and rewrite the history in this way. Comparing diffs, this one-liner is interesting in and of itself. It essentially means that you can diff the content of a folder itself. So here I'm selecting a folder, and if folder has different files, so the ls output of this is different, then we can diff on this output. So this is in and of itself really interesting use of the diff command. You can diff obviously the content of the files, but you can also diff on the result of the files. Finally, last category is copying various things. So I very often have to do things like copy a path to a file or copy its name. And in order to do this in terminal, you can of course use file manager in terminal, but very often you just quickly want to grab it and do something like pipe it to clipboard. So let's see how this works. So if I do one of this command rg, so I can search for something in the file content. So rg is ripgrep, which is a faster grep. And then I am searching for literal value inside of a file. So I know that my files have word fzf in them. So I can do again this rep for change. I can do fzf. You can see it substituted the word to change. And then it showed me there are two files that contain the word fzf. So this commands file and presentation. If I hit enter here, you can see it actually should copy it to clipboard. I'm missing here the -- clipboard at this point. But this is also quite useful way of doing it. So to quickly recap, we have a snippet manager. In my case, it's called pet. I have also my own fork with a few improvements there. There are other snippet manager like Navi or others. They all essentially do the same thing. They enable you to store your one-liners or command snippets so that you can later quickly retrieve them by searching for meaningful description that you provided earlier. You can also create your own very simple bash file that does something similar, but those programs already have some nice functionality and integrate well with the terminal itself. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. There were just a few one-liners that I find useful and interesting, and a way how you can essentially create your own. One thing I want to show you at the end is this file I mentioned earlier about, this should be a bit, so file with various abbreviations. So this is associative array in bash, and you see I have various abbreviations like _SPO for sponge expand, and you've seen this rep and fill. And how do they work? So if you go to this global replace, for example, this is simply a function that when I type this, I am using Z shell line editor. I'm grabbing the whole buffer from the left-hand side, which is before the abbreviation, and I'm essentially using here Z shell magic to expand the command and replace it with the value of name. So if you're interested in this, all of this is in my dot files. I also have a video dedicated for this specific Z shell abbreviation, so you're not wondering why I have this weird kind of command with minus at the end, with question mark at the end. But otherwise, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this short video, and as always, we'll catch you in the next one.